Well, grace and peace again. I'm Pastor Charles Montgomery Jr., and today I want to continue our Advent devotionals. We've been focused on this week on the theme of peace. You know, I'm a product of Columbus City Schools, and as a fifth grader at Old Orchard Elementary School on the east side of here in Columbus, I always felt sorry for a fellow student I'll just call Jerry. Jerry had a high, squeaky voice. He was hyperactive, socially inept. He had a tall, skinny body that was an easy target for grade school bullies. I mean, people teased Jerry until he would eventually, as some of us would call it, spaz out. But y'all, I never really participated in the teasing, but I certainly didn't stop it either. But it was until one day in December, we were on the playground during recess, and I saw trapped on the top of a large snow hill 6 boys surrounding Jerry. They were taunting and teasing him and flinging snow at him, but, as I watched, something snapped inside of me. So I raced toward the snow hill and I dove sideways to the throng of boys, knocking down 3 of them. And after I scampered up the snow hill, I joined Jerry at the top. I screamed at the boys, "Hey, if you want to come after Jerry, you have to go through me." After a moment of confusion, one of the bullies yelled, "Well, let's pound both of their faces into the snow." So they proceeded to pummel both of us, or at least they tried. But listen, it was great, because for the first time in my career as an elementary student, I actually cared about something beyond myself. You might even say I was a freedom fighter against oppression and injustice. You see, that day, there at the elementary school playground, my heart cracked wide open. I looked at the world, or at least Old Orchard Elementary, and a voice whispered in my ear, "This isn't right. It's not supposed to be this way. That violence and injustice should not have the upper hand. There has to be a better way." Friends, I have no idea where that voice came from, but it was loud and clear and obvious. It was what the New Testament scholar N.T. Wright has said: a sense of justice comes with the kit of being human. I didn't know it at the time, but the voice I heard on that playground was the same voice that comes out of the pages of the Bible. It begins quietly, but by the time we reach the book of the prophets, the voice gets louder and louder. The voice of God through those wide-eyed, visionary, peace-hungry prophets went something like this: "You were made for better days. The strong oppress the weak. The rich pummel the poor. Nation goes to war against nation. But I, the Lord, have made you for better days, and I will bring those better days to pass." The ancient Jews had a word to describe those better days. They called it Shalom, which is Hebrew for peace. Now, quickly in the Bible, God's Shalom meant much more than simply the absence of war. It indicated more so a positive state in my soul, or a private transaction between God and me. The longing for God's Shalom included those things. But for those radical Jewish believers, peace was much bigger and broader. Shalom not only meant inner peace or spiritual peace, it meant wholeness and completeness throughout all creation. It meant the end of injustice. It meant the rich would no longer devour the poor. It meant that racial and ethnic and economic injustice would no longer exist. It meant all brokenness would be set right and healed. It meant that people would love one another in beloved community. Shalom would flow deep and broad, embracing all of creation, including plants, animals, and the earth itself. And as the story of the Bible unfolded, God dropped some clues that would awaken our hearts to long for better days. For the Jews, the hope of Shalom was wrapped up in a person. Someone is coming, they believed, who will open the door to peace. The question was, who? The prophet Isaiah said it would happen like this. For unto us a child is born. To us a son is given. He will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and watch this, the Prince of Peace. Well, several hundred years later, as is recorded in our New Testament, someone is born. And when he's born, an entire host of angels start singing, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and peace on earth to all whom God favors." It's over in Luke chapter 2, verse 14. Fast forward, around the globe on Christmas Eve, followers of Jesus will celebrate the coming of the peace of God intended for his creation. This peace has come in Jesus, and he is the one Isaiah pronounced, who would be our Prince of Peace. Now, admittedly, all of this might sound abstract to you. And some of you listening to me may be wondering, well, how does this affect my life? Well, let me tell you how it affected my life. Years later, I met Jerry again at a school reunion. I was then living as a follower of Jesus, and Jerry had become a full-fledged member of the armed forces. He had spent most of his time fighting overseas in the war. But soon our conversation turned, and he asked me, "Charles, why are you a Christian? What difference does it make? Why don't you do something really worthwhile in your life, like toppling a foreign power to preserve democracy to bring peace?" Y'all, it was a loaded question. And honestly, I can't remember what I said. But if I could have one more shot in that conversation, I would respond to Jerry with two simple points. First, I need peace with God. I want peace everywhere in the world. But the message of Jesus, the revolution of peace that started on that first Christmas, means that peace really has to start in my heart. And I can't be an effective instrument for peace until I find peace with my relationship with God. Meaning this, unless I'm at peace with God, I'm not part of the solution. I'm still part of the problem. Can I ask you a question, friend? In this Advent season, as we celebrate the coming of the Prince of Peace, have you made peace with God in your heart? Because if more of us would make peace with God by inviting the Prince of Peace into our heart, maybe, just maybe, we might see more peace in the world. But listen, following Jesus is not simply a matter of enjoying peace in my heart or in my relationship with God. Jesus, our Messiah, calls us to join his revolutionary movement of bringing shalom to a broken world. Now, I don't have time to enumerate all the places in the world that are broken, but here's what I can tell you. We begin this peacemaking movement or journey in our homes, in our neighborhoods, and in our families. In other words, God has called us to be instruments of peace. Perhaps that's why Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Now, of course, peace does not mean the absence of conflict. And some of you listening to me right now may be facing conflictual situations this holiday season. But here's what it does mean. It means working through the conflict to bring peace into our relationships. And sometimes that can mean standing up for those who are treated unjustly. So this Christmas, I pray that you have peace, but I also pray you will ask God to show us ways to be instruments of peace in our homes, in our church, and in our community. My prayer is that the peace of God may be with you in this season.